And now, Pete, maybe I will just make you the host, and then I think we did that the last time like that also.
Yeah, even that would work.
Okay. So for now, we do not have any French attendees.
Right now, it's okay. Cool. So thank you very much for coming today. So this meeting, as I've already written to a few over short emails, this is not like a. I just got a caption message in front of my screen. Is this something that I need to handle?
No,
sorry.
I was just testing.
Okay. Yeah. So this meeting, we wanted to keep it to those who want to collaborate, who want to have a discussion on how we can work together on this. So that's why I didn't go out on LinkedIn and other forums to publicize it a lot, but rather we just sent you specific invitations based on our understanding before. So this is why we have a small group today. And we have, over the last weeks, we have been constantly, regularly meeting as ourselves, as well as also with PASA on what they think and how our discussions have been going on. And this is a follow-up of that. So a few of you already wrote to me short messages that you would like to contribute and collaborate on this topic. So that's the core theme of today is what did we learn from our previous discussions, the last two discussions, which a few of you have definitely joined, and what can we do together? What can we do for the sector itself? So I'll start with a quick round of introductions. My name is Ajit. I've not been showing as a face in the previous two meetings. But pretty much all of you would have got my emails in the past. I work for Urban Waters, and I've been working in the sector for already almost 8-9 years, working on different aspects of FSM planning. Generally with a couple of other colleagues, we've been looking into the logistics aspects of FSM, and that was the intention of us as an organization to come in to this collaboration with Hafen City University. I'll hand over to Tim for your short intro.
Yeah, thanks, Ajit. Tim Fettbach. I'm working with Hafen City University. And to keep it a little bit short, I'm basically researching on FSM in Dar es Salaam, thinking about cost recovery models. And we have been working together with John and Ajit also, and of course also with the border team in Tanzania a lot, and also with the Urban Water Consulting. And in the end, we had this opportunity during the FSM conference to start this discussion on how to enable the private sector. And we're happy to continue it and to see where this leads. And actually now just to kind of get a better, clear picture of what is actually the interest of the sector. May I hand over then to Stefan?
You're on mute, Stefan.
I am Stefan, and I need to unmute my microphone. And after working for 20 years for the German NGO Border, I'm now working as a freelance consultant and am a member of the Fecal Sludge Management Alliance, and was really happy to be part of the moderators for this private sector hosted session during FSM 6. Next one. To whom hand I over? Maybe
Good.
Keith?
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Keith. I'm a student from the Inha University. I study logistics and business. I worked with Urban Water as an intern and helped with the logistic aspects of the problems we're facing. And now I also help facilitating this exchange relating to the French, English translations and communication. Thank you.
Over to John.
Hi, I'm John Young. I also work with Tim. I'm assisting him in his research in Dar es Salaam, trying to find out the best way to integrate the private sector into sanitation. Yeah, very brief. I'll hand over to Peter.
Hi, I'm Peter Hawkins. I think I've intersected with quite a lot of you in different ways. When I used to work for the World Bank, and about, it must be about 5 years ago now, we designed part of a larger water sector project, which was to support sanitation in Dar es Salaam. And we had wanted Border to get involved, but there was a lot of politics, and I'm not quite sure what's happening there now. But yeah, since then I've become an independent consultant. I've been, as I think it's been mentioned, working on the Africa Sanitation Policy Guidelines with AMCAO, and now with the Africa Water Facility on this Urban Sanitation Investment Fund for Africa. And yeah, I mean, the whole business of bringing the private sector up to speed, helping it to grow, helping it to work better is very central to the work I'm doing now.
Thank you. Over to you, Lena. Listen me.
Hello everyone. In Jakarta here it's 4 p.m. So I don't know. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me here. My name is Lena. I'm from SNV Indonesia, SNV Netherlands Development Organization. I work as a WAS specialist at SNV, supporting 3 cities in Indonesia in giving capacity building to the cities, and for my part, especially to the operators that is responsible for the desludging, transport, treatment, reuse, and disposal. So I think that I was thinking that this event will be attended by many people. I wanted to learn here. I'm not sure what I can share, but what we did so far in Indonesia in the WAS SDGs program, this is the 3rd year. We have developed the SOP, MIS, Management Information System, and we are launching schedule dislodging program. But I hope here to learn new skill and knowledge from everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's even if it's a smaller group, we're here to learn from each other. I see Kurt next. Kurt, can you unmute and give a short introduction?
Yes, I'm Gert-Jan Bom. I work with Practica Foundation in the Netherlands. I'm very new to the FSM sector. Actually, it's only 1.5 years now that I'm involved, and our real expert is Xavier Gras, who's based in Madagascar. And within Practica, we have basically 3 units. It's drinking water, irrigation, and sanitation. And on the sanitation side, we've been getting complaints from our unit that the emptying of pits is so difficult. It's all right if you can have access with a vacuum truck, but if not, you have to do it manually. They tried all sorts of different pumps and it's all problems. So we decided to try to develop a better pumping system, which I think we have done, but we are still piloting it. So we're not quite sure how it works or if it works, but it looks promising. So yeah, we are very much on the technology side, not on the planning or regulation. That's me. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Pawan. Hi, Pawan.
Hi, Ajit. Good morning, everybody. I'm joining from Delft, Netherlands. As you see, my name is Pawan Kumar Reddy. I worked in with CDD Society in India, based out of Bangalore, for 5 years, largely designing fecal sludge treatment plants and wastewater systems, DWATs, across India and Nepal. Right now, I'm doing MSc in Sanitation Masters at IHE Delft. So I'm in my thesis now, and my thesis is also inclined with the ongoing subject. It's about FSTP's underutilization in India, what influences that underutilization. So that's why I'm I didn't miss this meeting. So looking forward. Thank you.
Pavan, can you repeat the title of it's underutilization of conventional STPs?
Fecal sludge treatment plants.
Oh, fecal sludge. So
yeah.
Underutilization. Why are they not used to the maximum? Okay.
Yeah. What influences the utilization rate of FSTPs?
Okay.
So yeah.
Thank you, Pavan.
Thank you. I just noticed someone just joined in. We're doing a quick round of introductions before we get into a short presentation from me. So Patricia, can you quickly give a short intro?
Good morning. It's morning over here. I'm not sure wherever you can. But I'm Patricia Chibwe. I'm from Malawi, but currently studying in the Netherlands, IAG. Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to follow the discussions today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Patricia, which country you are from? Malawi?
Yes.
Thank you. That's
yeah.
my ears. Thank you. Okay.
Nice. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining in. So I'll quickly get into the presentation part of today's session. So what I have with me is a short presentation, which is collected different inputs which have come from our speakers in the previous sessions, as well as some of you all, some of the participants who joined us. And this is just a brief collection of different challenges as well as different opportunities that have come across in this fecal sludge emptying and transportation space. And these are from experiences from different parts of the world, which is just collected together. I hope you can see my screen. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I'll just quickly go through what we've been doing. So when the FSM6 was in the organization phase, we were basically a few different organizations who were interested to look at this emptying and transportation segment of the sanitation value chain. And we wanted to understand what are the concerns in this space, as well as raise our understanding on it, as in how can we address the issues that are existing in this space. And this was Urban Waters, the Hafen City University, as well as the Pan-African Association of Sanitation Actors. You have listened to all of us in the previous sessions. So we had 2 Zoom workshops, one hosted during the FSM6 and another one later, which we hosted ourselves, a live discussion forum. Internally, we've had several different discussion meetings, the people that you see here, as well as different representatives from PASA. Even we had a chat last week already, using the same set of inputs that we've collected so far. And our idea, and we've also been supported by a lot of colleagues from Border Africa, CD Society. There were also a lot of independent professionals who have helped us in organizing all of these, also giving valuable inputs. So our idea is to come again on the 18th of August, 9 a.m. So the same time, wherever you are, as a part of the Susanna annual meeting. And we would like to bring forward these points, these learnings that we have got through these sessions. And we would like to see also include other organizations or other actors in the sanitation sector who have been or who have had interest to work in this emptying and transportation segment of the sanitation value chain. And if there is an opportunity to work together, how can we collaborate? We want to explore more in that direction. So that's how and where we are coming from. This meeting that we are having today, we've kept it to those people who have already been interacting with us or joining our sessions. So yeah, the crowd is small today. I've also got a few people who've already said that they can't make it exactly on this time, but they would like to contribute later on. So After the session, I would also be sending you certain, like a really short form wherein you can give in certain inputs, which can then be highlighted as activities that are ongoing, as well as how, or if you have an idea to collaborate with us in a different way, we can also bring that forward during the Susanna meeting. But we would still get the opportunity to discuss this in detail today. So through the different discussions, we've identified several points of concern or several opportunities and challenges within the space. We tried to categorize them in a few different points, so that's how we came up with the 6 main points that I also wrote in the email to you all. That we see challenges and concerns in the support that the sector itself, these private entrepreneurs, are receiving from the government. We see clear concerns on how a good contract can be established between the public and the private sector. There are different questions related to the regulatory environment and how it is already set up and how it is lacking in certain areas. The question of logistics as an action itself, there are a lot of concerns on how easy it is right now, how difficult is the service provision. There are several opportunities or several gaps in terms of how this sector can work with other sectors, or the segment of the sanitation value chain can work with other segments of the sanitation value chain. So these synergies are something that we need to explore. And one of the fundamental things to all of this is how this private sector is also included in the planning process. The different entrepreneurs who are working on the field, how they're not being or they're missing out on the planning process itself, and how that is affecting the FSM, the formation of the FSM in every city, no matter where we are. I'll go through each of these points quickly using single slides, and then we'll get into a discussion mode. So from the government support aspect, we saw the gap in that this sector itself is not really formalized or recognized in most of the cities around the world. In many locations, they even say that there is a total inexistence of any kind of government support, that this whole sector of emptying and transportation works totally independent and not together. In some areas, there is a certain amount of, certain sense of working together. But generally, there is the entrepreneurs, they fear that the moment they get formalized, there is a taxation, and then different kinds of public service barriers are coming in. And then there is the informal nature, which reduces the access to business loans. So even if there are financial schemes and other stuff which is available in these countries or these areas, because they're informal entrepreneurs, they cannot access them. There are several aspects of setting up of tariff structures, zoning. We've seen examples from Uganda and other places where it is done without a clear consensus from the emptying sector. So in the end, once the structure is built, or once the concept is ready, it becomes something that is not very useful for the entrepreneurs to work with. And in general, they're not the whole gap in becoming a formal business in terms of taxation, in terms of other formalities. This is often seen as a concern. So how to really make the sector a formalized and recognized business? I think this is one of the fundamental things to any kind of changes that we need to see in this sector. Going specifically into contracts, the public and private sector, we always say that there need to be public and private sector engagement. But the fundamental to all of this is setting up what kind of contract systems can exist. Some of the research has seen that the traditional PPP models are probably sometimes too restrictive, or the structure that it brings in is probably not appropriate for a informal sector like the emptying business that we are talking about. So we need more space for more open participation. And then we discussed on several context specific fee structure models that is required. So there are fixed fee models based on how many emptying is done. There are volumetric contracts. So there are pros and cons on each of them, which we've seen from some cases from India, for example. There is a need for direct or cross subsidies to connect low income and high cost areas of the city, which probably will have to be embedded into such contracts. But how exactly can this be done is something that needs to be further researched, further analyzed, because otherwise we will always have certain part of the city which is not connected through these services, even though all the infrastructure exists, just because of the fact that the people over there cannot afford it. Within the regulatory environment, the need for regulations across the value chain is really, I mean, it's really accepted by everyone, even the private operators. But then what they have often seen is the regulatory system is rather restrictive than being enabling. So there are, for example, there is the standardization of on-site sanitation systems. They see that there is a certain regulations, but really ensuring that every on-site sanitation system in the city, which is built in a proper way, how it is ensured, or because these are systems which have been built over a larger period of time, what kind of schemes can really be placed for retrofitting or constructing standard systems? How can this be promoted? This is unclear. And there are several initiatives to control unsafe sanitation, unsafe emptying practices, for example. However, the regulations, how to really enforce these regulations is not really considered properly. And one of the fundamental points that we have seen is that the monitoring and data collection related to each of these activities is really important. But at the same time, how can this data collection be enforced? Can this be a self control or self reporting models, or how would a monitoring system which is coming from a different organization or a government organization, how would it work in such cases? This still needs to be explored. The quality of service delivery is often a concern in these cases, and how they can be monitored, again, is another question. At the same time, while setting up all of this system, when we try to set up transparency and accountability in the whole sector, how can a regulatory environment be placed which can improve the predictability of the income stream? How can the business security of these operators can be ensured? Without answering that question, any kind of regulatory setups that are built up would not be welcome, more or less, from most of the sector. So some of the concern related to logistics is of course the distance to the fecal treatment plant. So from a disposal location, which is commonly being used when a clear FSCP needs to be built, it's often either located far away or it is not. It's not easily accessible. So how can the distance be reduced or optimized by whichever means this needs to be explored? At the same time, there are several initiatives on fecal sludge, desludging apps or desludging call center systems to have some sort of a service coordination. There's a fair amount of agreement that this is helping, and how can this be scaled up then, so that such services are accessible for cities around the world and not just every city making their own systems. How can this be done? This is a question. There is a lot of discussion around whether scheduled emptying is feasible. We've had experiences from India, for example, or inputs from India, for example, that scheduled is probably not really feasible at this point of time. And there's a more alignment towards a group emptying process. However, we've also seen the case of Malaysia, where scheduled emptying has somehow worked out by potentially working through a longer period of time. So essential component for all of this is, again, a proper data and monitoring systems, which is connecting every single containment unit of a city. How can this be practically made? This is a question or challenge which is really in front of us. And how can we potentially transition from this on-demand to a grouped, to a scheduled emptying, which might need to be required to be spanned across a large time period. The concern related to the emptying equipment is there in many parts of the cities. Sometimes it is related to aging infrastructure, or sometimes it is not related to unreliable equipment, which is just making the whole process of emptying rather difficult or time consuming. This is even related to the point Kurt just mentioned, that this is actually causing loss if it takes much longer time than what is required. And yeah, the data is again a point which has been coming across most of our discussion, that we need to have financial data and operations data to really understand what can be optimized, what can be changed, to make sure that the business security is safe, at the same time the affordable services are reaching everyone. There are several synergies that we've come across. The connection between FSM sector and solid waste management sector is very, it was discussed a few different times. There were also ideas on connecting schemes like carbon credits or other climate change adaptation or resilience initiatives with FSM. Practically how it can be made is still a question. We had certain concerns related to that. There was the idea of increasing the shareholdership in the value chain. That means the operators are not just there to do the emptying and transportation, but also they could do other parts of the sanitation value chain. Could be potentially related to management of the treatment systems, or it could be many other aspects. They also identified the training of masons on standardized construction, and making sure that the sanitation practices are a bit standardized. This will definitely have a positive impact towards the operations of emptying businesses. So overall, to increase the economics of scope by having more and more operations included into emptying service providers work, and also the scale by having the ability to work with more number of clients. This is probably one critical factor in enabling this sector. So overall, there needs to be some sort of increase in the ownership of this private sector over the sanitation value chain. And the last component of any of our fecal sludge FSM value chain should not be the treatment plant. It should be a center which is producing value. So the reuse component is very important in this case. To give out many benefits, not just for the people who are using these services, but also for the formalizing of this whole sector itself. Last but not the least, probably one of the most important point is to include these private sector in the entire planning process and empower them. So there are different courses which are being developed in capacity building of the emptying and other service providers in the FSM sector. So this should be extended towards the emptying service providers as well. And then there are several needs of these private sector operators, and if they are not addressed during the FSM planning in any city, this is then there are pretty high chances that the FSM will not work once the infrastructure implementation is happening. So overall, they need to be a part of the whole planning process. Their decisions, the direction where all the decisions are made, all of this, they need to be a part of. So they are one of the key stakeholder, and unless they are there in this decision-making process, we might not be able to get proper or tangible solutions out. So these are the these are the several points that have come across of our discussions over the last 2 meetings. And there are several efforts which are happening around the world by different organizations in this direction. I'm just using 3 examples from the organizations that are here. So PASA is working on this one city, one treatment plant approach, where every city is able to make at least to have this provision of treatment plant there, so that they have whatever work the emptying service providers do, it is a legitimate work that is a part of the public service provision. And also this is added up with several capacity building initiatives working with different organizations. There is research in Dar es Salaam, which is coordinated by Tim and John and the local organizations over there in the understanding the FSM sector and how can different tariff structures and how can really this public-private partnership or whatever we call this can really be there practically in such a state where the public sector service provision is not really strong as compared to other sectors like transportation and so on. And how can those scenarios, how can these private sector operators work with required business security? As Urban Waters, we are working in the logistic analytics, so we are helping certain cities in understanding what is the implication of different decisions that are made during the planning process. Like, for example, the location of the treatment plant or the type of a certain data, like, for example, how spread is your FS collection across your city, and how can this affect the whole sanitary FSM planning over spread across several number of years. So the analytics is really giving insights onto that and making sure that decisions made at the FSM planning stage itself is understanding these limitations that are existing over there. So there are several other initiatives from the FSM Alliance, from cost, from capacity building. So we would like to connect with these different initiatives while we're working towards setting up ideas on what can we do as these few different organizations or a small group of people curious to work on the sector. So that's our intention. So with this session, we just want to bring together people who are interested to work on the sector on this topic, and how can really work be initiated. How can we just move away from having these meetings where probably 100 people or 50 people coming in and discussing towards real tangible actions. So this is why we are here. We would like to identify a few low-hanging fruits, which are the points which we, as the small group of people who have the interest to work, can address, and then from there we can see what can be done beyond that. So our main aim is to come up with this small framework, identifying what resources do we need, what activities can we do, and in terms of skills, or it might be financial resources, doesn't matter. But what can we do and what can we ask to the sector to help us achieve these goals? So at the Susanna meeting on 18th of August, we would like to have these points presented with some tangible directions on wherever we work, doesn't matter. How can we address these challenges which are existing there? How can our current work be connected? How can we look for new project ideas, new opportunities to work addressing these concerns? So this is broadly our set of my short presentation, and I would definitely like to get into the brainstorming mode, where I would like to hear from you. What are your ideas? Where do you think your skills or your resources can come in terms of addressing these challenges that have been discussing? Thank you. And I would like to hand over to Stefan to lead the rest of the session.
Okay, thank you, Ajit. And the last step was maybe too quick. So for myself, I feel like I would like to reiterate, we feel that in order to bring about change, it was very helpful to listen to PASA, to listen to the private sector actors, and also to a number of professionals who feel that they would be more efficient if we could work on ways how to join forces. Now, one motivation to bring this dialogue from the FSM6 further to the Susanna annual meeting and annual conference was to make more people aware about the perspective from what the private sector needs in order to ensure that the fecal sludge reaches the treatment plant. And on the other side, it would be a lost opportunity to fill that room at the Susanna conference without maybe also coming up with an ask. What do we see is required, or how can those who are listening help fuel that transformative action? And hence we came up with this synthesis of what we have been hearing and what we have been understanding is required. We would like to hear during this debate now, maybe from Lena, from Gert, from Peter, Pavan, what are elements, what you are working for, and what you feel would be, with perspective of what Ajit just has been sharing, is there anything which is missing, or what your perspective could be represented better? And then the last point combined with this ask is, where do we see, or how can those who would like to join, either with human resources or with financial resources, how could they join in order to help progress in this field of action beyond the different projects which are already ongoing? So with this, I guess I would like to invite reflections from those who are in the room regarding what you have been hearing. Are there elements regarding low-hanging fruits? Ajit mentioned what are the points which we asked this group, we as this group can address best using our skill set. Yeah, who would like to raise the hand or comment or come up with a question, please?
I will just take the silence and use the opportunity, but as I already talked a lot also over the last sessions, I think just feel free to interrupt me wherever. And I think also most of you already know what we are working on. It's also good to see some people like Gert who I just know over emails. So, and I know your pump system. I really appreciate that. And I think we have actually a nice group here of different backgrounds, although we are very small. And just like coming back a little bit to what we are doing, what is our interest. So basically, my vision is that I would like to estimate like the real costs for FSM, and then have some evidence for improved decision making. So for example, some evidence which could be used for advocating for subsidies or for sanitation levy in certain places. where the business is not visible yet. And for that, I'm first looking at best practices, basically, which improve the service provision, because we have this hope of that maybe an improved FSM does not really have to be more expensive. So estimating a bit on, what would be the benefit of having more efficiency, so reducing the costs and at the same time also improving the service quality. So, and for that, of course, I'm looking into different aspects of how to optimize the service provision. And there I'm very much interested to hear from other people who are active in the sector, what is their experiences to all the different aspects we have been discussing with scheduled grouped emptying or decentralization, and. Yeah. So that's basically from my side, and I would be also interested to hear from other participants which interest they would have also in such an exchange in the beginning. So if there's still an interest to continue working on this, to really get to a more frequent learning event where we can exchange ideas, or more like working group approaches also, where we focus on specific aspects. I know that, for example, the FSM app was discussed, also from Rafia Gras during one of the last sessions, and there was a lot of feedback and up and down, and I have the feeling there are lots of experiences out there. Everyone knows the idea, but it's not yet really functioning, this app. And on the other hand, it's something which is really necessary, and how can we get this now with the experience from the sector? One is from on the ground experience, the other one might be more technical support from some technical experts. How can we get this combined?
So Tim, you working for the Hafen City University are reaching out saying, hey guys, I would like to digest more data in both regarding good practice, but also the cost involved, these two together. And I think it's important also that you started with reaching out to private sector actors, because it's not just an effort among universities, but also what's the additional mile so that we can get first-hand data and this scientific support would be a benefit for the private sector and involve them at the first place, but also, of course, all other stakeholders. Is that correct, more or less?
Yeah, I think it's one thing is the data. On the other hand, I think also if data is not yet too reliable, also the field experience is very valuable. So that's really what do the practitioners experience in the field, and then to build up on that. So what is their experiences with certain type of contracts or with certain arrangements in FSM?
I just saw the message from Hert on this technology gaps. Can you, like, I already know it from your email a little bit, but I would like to hear more.
Okay. Yeah, as I said in the introduction, we were getting these signals from our sanitation group in Madagascar that the difficulties they had in emptying the pits, if the sludge would be thick and if the sludge would contain a lot of rubbish, it was very hard to do it mechanically, and they had to resort to do it manually, which is, of course, a very dirty job. So we started the development of this pump, and we're testing it now in different locations. But funny thing is that I'm not getting any feedback from the FSM community about that they have a problem in this area. Are we the only ones looking at this problem, or what does the sector think about it?
Can you repeat the only one?
Yeah, it seems that we have this problem. We said, well, we cannot empty these pits. There's a lot of debris, a lot of thick stuff. We can only do it manually. Are we the only ones facing this problem?
Okay, let me quickly react to that, and maybe Peter, you would like to chip in then. Yeah, there is a very long history around the challenges of emptying what ends up in a pit, because it's not just fecal sludge. It has a diverse consistence, from liquid to very solid to 80% solid waste, and so on and so on. So all the developments, and it's important then for us to understand what boxes you have ticked. There were very long-term activities, both from United Nations-led initiatives in the 80s and 90s with the VacuTag and things like that. Oxfam has been doing a lot. And actually, one of the initiatives which led to the creation of the Fecal Sludge Management Alliance, or that helped bringing the first FSM conference 2011 in Durban into existence, was the question, what happens when the pit is full? Because the city of Durban, South Africa, ended up with inheriting 70,000 pits from former government before transition, 1994. And now it was a municipal business to empty them. And they have been sharing during that first FSM conference their experience, both with how to empty them and what to do with the shit, or with the remainders of what was shit before. There was a very big initiative from supported by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation on they called it Omni Ingester. So there were these different initiatives, Omni Processor, Omni Ingester, and other activities. But the Ingester was also one of the efforts in order to deal with how to empty the pits. So before asking Peter to assist, maybe you can give a quick feedback, Gert, to which extent you have been coming through the work from Oxfam over the years, from Water for People, Water Aid, with the different gulper, nibblers, and other elements. So where's your missing link? Because you asked, you're missing feedback, and I was just trying to say, hey, there's been 30 years of difficult work, and a lot of papers been produced. So where is...
Well, I think, Stefan, that I think we are aware of most of these efforts. Before we started thinking about designing our own system, we tried to collect as much information as possible about what has been done, what has been tried, what worked, what didn't work. Most of it didn't work, actually. And so based on that, we embarked on our own development, and while doing so, we tried to contact as many people as possible who were also either had been working before on these things or were still working on it. Like we talked to Tim some time ago. We talked to all the Gates people, etc., etc.
Very good.
So I think we had a fair picture of the situation. And the trouble, as we could see it with most of the systems, was that they had very much difficulty in handling debris. I mean, liquid stuff is not much of an issue. But debris, it would clog the pump, especially the valves. So the diaphragm pumps, for instance, they couldn't work because of that. So it either would clog the pump itself, or it would clog either the suction side or the delivery side of the system. So now we've developed a pump which is, I suppose you know the ROM system, ROM, which was developed in Holland and been tested in Malawi mainly, which is a relatively small vacuum tank. It has a separate vacuum pump and an engine. So it's a 1 cubic meter cycle system, you could say. It draws in 1 cubic meter, and then it has to go somewhere and dump 1 cubic meter. Now, what we have developed is basically the same, but it's a 20-liter cycle system. So you draw in the stuff, and then you push it out the other end through a long hose, can be up to 80 meters to a tank or something. Now, the system does have valves, but the valves are so-called duckbill valves. I don't know if you heard of them.
No.
It's a rubber thing. It looks like the bill of a duck. And the interesting thing about it is that any debris that gets stuck in the valve will simply close around it. And the next cycle, it will be pulled through. So they're very debris tolerant. That's one thing. Another thing is that because it's such a short cycle, we can create a high vacuum in a very short time. So in about maybe 10 seconds or so, we can go up to 10 meters of vacuum on the gates at least, meaning that you have a very strong pulling force. So altogether, we think we have developed a pump which is much more debris tolerant than the existing technologies. It is the pump and the power unit are separated, and they each weigh 45 kg. So you can pick them up, you can go to any place, put them there, and do your work. Yeah, I think those are the. Oh yeah, and it's relatively cheap. We think eventually we're thinking of production in India, but right now we make them in Holland. The whole system is less than 10,000 euro. I think eventually we can get to half of that. Meaning that with a relatively low investment, you have a better chance of getting a good business case. So yeah, that's where we are, Stefan. And we've been testing it in Madagascar, in a very difficult place with a lot of level differences. And well, we emptied about 20 pits, and we run into some difficulties, yes.
Yeah, no, everyone will. Peter, any initial feedback from your side on this?
Lots of things. Gert, are you in contact with Dave Still in South Africa?
No.
Because he's got something called the EVAC.
I know the EVAC, yeah.
Which sounds very similar.
Well, yes and no.
Yeah, I mean, I can see, but anyway, well, anyway, you should be in touch with him, seeing as you're working on something quite similar, it seems to me.
I connected your colleague Gert from Madagascar, Patrice, or what was his name? Xavier, with Dave Still from
yeah, they are in contact. Yeah,
but
go ahead.
Well, that's good. I mean, you know, if we've learned anything over the year, there is no one-size-fits-all solution. Very, very far from it. And in my experience of working with pit emptiers, I mean, they sort of do it naturally. They need to diversify. You need a range of different equipment for different sorts of pits. And that also has implications for the size of enterprise, because a very, very small 1 or 2 person enterprise may not be able to do that. And that also is linked with the informality, and it's linked with the whole business of making these businesses more formal. And one of the things that I've been kind of wanting to see for years, but nobody has ever taken me up on it, is this kind of idea of a sort of incubator for FSM enterprises, to help them both with the technical part and with the formalization and you know, running their businesses properly and producing numbers which they can speak to bankers about, as well as educating the bankers themselves. And somebody has to step into that space and deal with it. We're hoping that's one of the things that this Africa Urban Sanitation Investment Fund might be able to do.
Okay, so if I'm getting you, Peter, an FSM incubator could be a structure which could pick up, for example, Dave Still's solution and also Practica's solution and help furthering the business case? Like you mentioned, Gerd, you need to lower the cost and coming up with reliable data and things like that, and helping financially with taking it from where it is to a bankable solution?
Well, I think it's on two levels, because no, what I'm thinking in terms of incubator is something that exists at a local, at a city or a country level, you know, adapted to the local conditions and the local financial situation and the local regulatory situation, and so many specifics which cannot be generalized.
An incubator for each country.
Possibly, or you know, a network, or I mean, I you know, I don't know quite how
no, it's
how
fine.
it
It's I'm just.
But it's something that has to be able to function at a fairly local level.
Yeah.
Then there is something else, which I agree. We were even talking about it yesterday with the Urban Sanitation Investment Fund group, that there needs to be a more international approach to the equipment and the manufacturing. As we all know, there have been a lot of different initiatives, and there are all sorts of clever things out there. Probably we need some even cleverer things, but there's a lot there. Some of it, like you know, things like the very simple technology like the gulpers is best actually disseminated more or less person to person. You know, like we got some fundis from Dar es Salaam down to Maputo, and they taught the guys in Maputo, and then the guys in Maputo adapted the machine so it worked well in the pits there. Obviously with more sophisticated machinery, mechanical machinery, there is the only way we can get the costs down is with decent scale, and to get, you know, some of the big boys involved with that. You know, why is the whole of Africa functioning on the basis of broken down second-hand vacuum trucks designed for first world cities? That's a pretty stupid solution. It's happening because that's, you know, that's what is actually feasible and available right now. But I mean, it's clearly and very obviously not going to be the best solution. So somehow, because this is a big market, you know, we're talking billions of dollars. So that business case, I think, is quite easy to make. And it's a matter of perhaps doing that systematically and you know, putting resources together and having a voice, which I think PASA can help with, because it's you know, it's very clear what PASA is.
Gerd, are you aware
of legitimacy to that sort of?
Gerd, are you aware about what PASA is?
No, I'm not.
It's the Pan-African Sanitation Actors Alliance.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Yeah.
I know them.
They were one of our speakers at the initial event.
I saw that, yeah.
With the existence of a Pan-African Sanitation Actors Alliance, we think that they would be an important enabler for investment towards what Peter, I'm hearing from you, to bring the technology which those frontline workers and entrepreneurs need to a level that can be better understood and is bankable for entrepreneurs to acquire in a reliable way. So before you chip in again, Peter, I would briefly say to Lena, we are discussing a very specific part here because we've opened up for discussion, and I think it's a very important part. Now in Indonesia, we actually have the practice of wet sanitation, so there are hardly pits which have very thick and almost dry sludge, which is hard to empty compared to the case which we see in many countries in Africa. So just for you to understand, we are discussing a situation which mostly pertains to areas where people don't practice necessarily wet sanitation, not necessarily flush toilets, and where it's very difficult to empty pits. However, yeah, so just to chip in, and you may also contribute whether to which extent this is maybe interesting for you, but it sounds to me also through your participation here, Gerd, and with what you're saying, Peter, that there may be there might be really scope for a more specialized working group, working exchange involving private sector, where we would need to find a home for, and maybe also our reflection towards the event in at the Susanna meeting. Maybe there's something which we would like to call out for or reflect that there's a need. And for me personally, I believe Susanna might not be the ideal place for a working group there, but rather the FSM Alliance, because we need to involve the private sector. And our group, as we sit here, is more of the typical Susanna working group people, because we can afford the time coming together, but we need private sector players more of the forefront of this. But so around this discussion, and I think there is need for going more deeply into that and building on what's been done but not been solved so far. So business unfinished. And the question is, what would be the right home for that, or the required structure, which goes in line of this meeting, where we said, okay, how can we further this, acknowledging that this is a very specific part of the whole private sector and engagement thing. Peter, any comment to this? Or
yeah, no, I think that's right. I think part of what needs to be done is possibly something that this group or Susanna or people like it could do, which is that there needs to be put together the evidence which can then be peddled to the world's manufacturing industries. As I say, making the business case, pointing out the size of the market, so that we get away from all these little initiatives all over the place, and kind of mainstream it, so that it's a normal thing to go out into the market and look for FSM equipment instead of having to make it in your own backyard. It's maybe pie in the sky, but I think that's something to be done. I think another question that arises from what Gert was saying, and what we all know about the problem of debris in pits in Africa, is, it's actually the solution to that is in the toilets rather than in the emptying of the toilets. And so, things like one or two operators are selling these Sato traps to users. So when they empty a pit, they will sell an full Satopan, which will, reduce the ingress of debris subsequently. I mean, whichever way you go, you've got a mess that is going to be messy to sort out, because obviously retrofitting an existing pit is going to be messy, and the evidence is very strong that the only way of dealing with debris is to fish it out with various kinds of hooks, and yes, that's a mucky business, and we have to admit that, and try and see how in the future we can move towards things which are not so mucky to empty.
Stefan,
yes,
can I interrupt that?
Yeah.
Actually, when I mentioned business case, I'm not so much concerned about the business case of building and selling those machines. It's more the business case for the emptiers that I'm concerned about. They have to do investments, they have cost. How many pits can they empty per day? Can that be enough for them to make a little profit? That sort of thing.
So which then involves, again, and comes closer to the case which was which is part of Tim's research. What is how can the whole chain from what a private household is willing to pay, make a living for those who are willing to become professionals and remain in that business for a longer term, getting access to credit and so on. So this looks like you know, just we need some resources and pulling together a meaningful terms of reference again, and the working group feeding in, so that Dave Stills, the practicas, and all the other guys who have been spending part of their daily life to work on that, come up with a description of how this gap can be better described, so that we can continue with this incubating process in both directions, both making it understandable for larger companies what the business case for that is, but on the other side also have enough say from the private entrepreneur side, from his perspective, what it would what additionally would be required, which is not only making this pump cheaper and make it a good investment for a 5-year or 10 years operation, but also from his perspective to how many clients does he need, and so on and so on. This will be very different from country to country, from maybe local government to local government. So this is just, you know, my thinking, that I feel we would need a kind of some resources, because I would guess here that your work is getting this pump better, but not investing in business cases for larger companies or in the other direction. So, or would Practica be willing to invest money into such a business case development or kind of study?
I think it looks to us now, Stefan, that the R&D phase may be largely done. I don't think we should spend much more time on that. I think we're shifting our attention now to the business case. And business case means also the whole logistic chains. So we're about to start a pilot in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso, where we're going to pay a lot of attention to that sort of thing. We work together with the ONEA, which is the, you know, that, and
Office National des
and the on the private sector side, we work with the manual emptiers on the one hand and the vacuum truck operators on the other hand. We're about to start a pilot in Ethiopia, but before sending out any equipment, we'll go there first and try to map the situation, like what sort of pits, what are the distances, what will be the best solution here. We're also having a pilot coming up in Nakuru, Kenya, and one in Bangladesh. I've forgotten its name. So our attention will mainly be going now to the business cases for these different enterprises. And for instance, manual emptiers, they're generally very small. I just don't see them investing in this sort of equipment. So one possibility is if they are organized in a kind of group, they can rent it from the group, for instance. Or we're also thinking of maybe looking at our system is called a Pupu system. We may start looking at the Pupu Light, a very a thing without an engine, more like the gulper, but then using our technology so that it can handle sludge better, that sort of thing. So the business case is what we really are concentrating on from now on, I think.
Okay, so what is your request? And I see Ajit raising his hand for quite some time, and we've been spending quite some time on this very specific topic, which obviously is very much at the source of the whole sanitation chain, and I think it's okay. But I need to also hand over at some point to Ajit. But just your last feedback. What are you looking for, Gerd? More of debate in this kind, which we are just having right now, or what would be an ideal outcome of this, looking forward to the next event in August?
Yeah, more of debate actually. It's not money we're looking for. We have enough money to cover additional R&D.
Okay.
The pilots will probably be paid for. So it's more feedback from the sector, exactly what we need. Are we doing the right thing now? Should we concentrate on something else? Where are the gaps? That's what I'm looking for.
Okay. So having also entrepreneurs or entities like PASA or operators from India and so on. So now over to Ajit and then Tim.
No, I mean, it's a really nice discussion going in this direction of technologies, but I read Lena's point on the chat, and I had a question to her actually, because she mentioned that out of the 31 cities, 30 cities had where scheduled e-sludging was planned, 30 cities it failed. And this was a chat that we also had maybe a week ago or so, scheduled how it breaks. So I wanted to know, like, what is the diagnostic? Like, what did you learn from that? If you saw 30 failures, what did you learn from there? And what are the reasons that you perceived from that?
Yeah, so the 31 cities got supervision or support from the IWAS program. I'm not sure if you are familiar, but I think you're familiar, yeah? The IWAS.
Yes, they were one of the co-hosts of the Indonesia track in the FSM6 conference.
Yeah, so I don't know, like every single one of the problem in the cities, but the one that I had conversation with, they fail, for example, because when the time of the desludging schedule came, the house owner are not at home, or house owner at home but they cannot pay. So this thing, because this is scheduled like 3 or 2 or 1 year in advance, yeah, for the desludging, and when the time came, they just not ready. The only one that was successful for the desludging program is the city of Surakarta, and that is because the payment for the desludging is how to say, put together with the water bill, because the operator for the water supply and desludging is the same entity. So, but we cannot adopt such payment collection system for other cities, because in other cities the water supply reach is very low. So for example, in SNV project cities, in the 3 cities, only 20% until 27% of households are connected to the water supply piping. So it's not fair that only part of the people pay, and yeah. So we don't know. I actually I come here to look for solution to learn from. Yeah. This is
Ajit, your hand is still raised.
I just forgot to lower it. That's all. But
I think it's very pertinent point as well, to look at that. Any feedback on that point from you, Peter?
Well, absolutely. In some work that we did for the Gates Foundation about 4 years ago, there was a book called Innovations in FSM, or FSM Innovations. What's it called? Yeah, there you go, FSM Innovation. That was, and it was a whole group of case studies. I mean, it's out of date now, but one of the case studies was Malaysia, where they tried to introduce scheduled emptying, and exactly these problems that Lena is talking about, they had there. And their sort of conclusion for that is that, you know, scheduled emptying is very desirable, but it is probably not something that you go for in the first instance. That first of all, you need to get a decent service going. And this is one of the things that comes along later, and that has implications for the way that you organize the service providers, because they initially, it needs to be a fairly entrepreneurial, open-ended kind of approach, which becomes gradually more organized. So that at least was one experience. And I think it underlines the whole point that you can have the best private sector emptiers with the best equipment in the world, but unless the municipal side of the equation is working, you can't have a decent sanitation system. And so, and that's that big job. I think every time, I think all of us find, when you go to Dar es Salaam or Yogyakarta or Lima or wherever, there's a very limited capacity in the local authorities to deal with that, and limited resources to put in the right people with the right capacity, and that's a kind of political battle that needs to be fought.
I wanted to, sorry,
Ajit.
Yeah, no, I wanted to ask this to Pawan, but Pawan also put it on the chat, because there was this experience from Bangalore in Devanahalli where instead of, because there was no much of a water supply connection or water supply bill which is regularly billed to the households, but there was a system that the households pay a property tax annually to the city. And if I remember everything right, there was a resolution passed by the municipal council that they have a certain addition which is added on to the property tax, and this is paid by every single household, and then this is then
By
going
the
into
landlord.
And this is then going into funding the desludging. I don't know how much. Like, I'm not sure about the current situation of this. Maybe Pawan knows something more than me.
It's this. I mean, talking about Devanali context, it's not integrated in any tax. It's on-demand based desludging. It's not scheduled desludging. So whenever a user needs desludging, they approach the ULB or the municipality. They pay the fee, and then the desludging happens. So there's no need of integration of the cost in the taxes. So I think it's only when it comes to the scheduled desludging. I think it's also one of the strategies why they are trying to integrate with other costs is basically when the user or the household is comforted with desludging once in 5 years or 10 years, wouldn't be willing to spend probably 200 euros or 50 euros once in a year when they're spending the same amount of money after 10 years or 5 years. So it's hard to penetrate that. So for that reason, they're integrating it into the property tax so that they don't really see that difference. I think it's a strategic perspective in trying to get the user acceptance of that, also bring the public health. So I think it's largely integration. The cost integration is happening, or I see it is being discussed when the scheduled desludging is coming into place. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. So maybe I can certainly respond to that. I think it's really good input. Sorry, really good input. I'm just a little worried about the like how to ring fence this this amount, because for example, from the experience right now, even the operators, the public emptier in the cities, they don't have the they don't have the authorization to use the money they got from retribution. So the money that came to them should be given to the city how to say, to the agency above them, like on a daily basis. And supposedly this money is to be used for the O&M, right? To cover O&M and so on. But they don't give this for the O&M, so they use it for other. So even it is on the, how to say, on the linear agencies line, yeah, it's hard to ring fence this. Now, if we put it together to completely different agencies, maybe it's only governance problem, but I will take a note of that, of course. And I think the problem is that it's just that about the cooperation problem and transparency between, yeah. But thank you very much.
I think Peter has brought in this nice word, municipal side of equation. You know, I mean, that's again a bigger dragon in the room, which we have to address, which is going to be a long haul. I am hoping all these efforts, I mean, I think the presentation was very well put in addressing this bigger dragon. I think, yeah, so it's the municipal side of equation, making them allocate some money and making them not to use it for something else and making the financial transactions flow. I think this is all was in some ways captured in this presentation. I think we all have to work towards it. There's no other way around.
And if I may interject again, one solution that I think quite a lot of people are becoming more interested in is because of these municipal issues, exactly what Lena was saying about ring fencing and managing the funds, is that there is much to be said if there is a functional utility to put the responsibility on the utility, because their management and their financial management are better suited to that. But of course, there are a lot of utilities that are completely useless, and therefore it's not a possibility. But
now here comes, I think, also an important learning. There was this interesting study which was pulled out by WaterAid some 5 years back. Why did many of the tiger states in Asia, I think 5 of them, achieve 100% sanitation within 30 years? And he was making the case from Taiwan, from Singapore, from Malaysia, from Thailand, and South Korea. And the point was that there was a political will to improve. So translating to our situation and to what you mentioned, Lena, it is not essential whether you start with scheduled emptying or with on-demand emptying. It is important that there's a political will to learn and to evaluate and to come up with corrective action. So the same applies to the performance of the utility, if there is, or the performance of any entity which is entrusted with providing the services of emptying, to stay in our example. Now, it may be that the form of the utility is evolving as better resourced or better performing. The target is there is no silver bullet for everything, but to hold accountable decisions which have enabled a certain kind of service and improving from there, willingness to learn, to sit together to see after 3 years, after 5 years, how is it working? And then not being afraid necessarily from the next election result, but rather remaining focused on the improvement of that service being essential for public health and driving and enabling economic development and resilience of the people. So not surprisingly, many of those countries have not been very democratic. Leaders have not been very afraid of the outcome of the next election, but just wanted to get rid of a problem. When sewers were started to be built in Germany, 1870, we had an emperor or a king not being very afraid of the next elections. So I'm not saying that's a precondition. I'm just observing and saying we can continue debating whether we should go on scheduled or not. There's pros and cons in everything. And now it's essential to not wait another 5 years to decide, but to start somewhere and then to evolve and keep an engaging process to be willing to learn from the numbers you just gave, Lena, on that learning from USAID IWASH program. It's not a problem that some of them failed. It would be a problem if we fail to learn repeatedly, right? Because we need to start somewhere. And the point then is, now we have the evidence. This has not worked well. So that's always an opportunity to learn. So that was out of my moderator's role, chipping into this kind of debate. And so the question for our collaboration here would be, how can we enable learning environment, coming up with data, which goes back also to the business case from Tim. How can data and learning contribute to trust among stakeholders so that they are not afraid of doing a mistake, but afraid of repeating a mistake and improving gradually. So what would be needed for you to find an environment and counterparts for where such learning is taking place? And welcome Peter Kamisi from Kenya, from PASA to our chat. Karibu sana, Peter.
Asante sana, thank you.
Okay, so with this we have had 90 minutes of meeting already. We have taken the opportunity to learn and get feedback from Lena yourself, from Gert. Peter, thank you very much for also bringing in the perspective from your background. I guess we are willing to compile and congest. You have been agreeing that we record this session. We will try to digest and synthesize elements of this meeting. And as we go ahead towards the next session, maybe Ajit, Tim, you could help how we take this forward, and whether there's an additional session in order to prepare. But I feel encouraged for taking this further, because exchange around private sector's perspective is very much essential for improving those discussions. Yeah, with this, back to you, Tim and Ajit. Tim, you're raising your hand.
Yeah, actually, I also thought since the beginning I was more or less not more or less, I was listening and I had points which I wanted to add, but I thought the discussion is going very well, actually. And yeah, it really motivates to continue in this direction. I really see PASA as a key stakeholder in Africa for, as Peter, you also mentioned a lot in the value of capacity development and having these opportunities then of using PASA as an institution to also develop business models, to be advocating with the government also on the other side, but also maybe being in contact with producers of equipment and then giving this feedback. So I see really this co-benefit for both sides. So Gerd, before you go for field testing, you can have PASA in and they can give you the direct experience directly, maybe some of the figures they have before we even have to go to test it. So yeah, and also with the incubator idea, I think that's, I have the feeling that their PASA is a good partner actually, who could start that. So yeah, happy with that. And I would hand over to Ajit actually. Okay, they're not. Well, how do we continue from here? I think we'll continue by summarizing our impressions which we got. And I think this is a, yeah, the challenge we will take now is somehow to narrow it down, and together with PASA, Peter, I hope that we can find somehow a key aspect where we can work on, so that we don't have this very broad discussions always.
Yeah. Sorry, I had a little interruption here. So before we close, I know it's been 90 minutes. I don't want to extend it long, but at the same time, we got hold of Peter a little late. So Peter Kamisi a little late. So I just wanted to do a little bit of bridging here that Gert talked about piloting in Nakuru, I believe.
Yeah.
So Peter might be of helpful, but also I had one of the emails from Triangle. I think they are also there. Sarah, she's been working in Nakuru for a while.
Research Triangle Institute, you mean? RTI?
I think
which triangle?
Triangle Environmental, I believe. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's. I need to figure it out. But anyway, they were also. She was also planning to attend today, but she wasn't able to. But yeah, there's definitely scope for more discussions and collaborations, especially on this topic. Yeah, and thank you very much for joining in today. So if there's some few words from Peter, your side, or Gert, if you want to connect, that would also be
it's all right.
to wait. Yeah. Cool. So in terms of our next steps, I'm going to send around this presentation as well as like a little framework for like a little form with which I can collect some sort of feedback from all of you as well as those who could not attend as well. And we'll take these, and if you have projects where you would like to give examples related to any of the points that are mentioned in the slides, please include them in your response as well. We would like to take it to the next session, and during the Susanna session, while presenting it, we would like to highlight these learnings that have come out of your work. And definitely we would like to make it in such a way that so the identifying where your skill sets or where your resources, human resources or financial, doesn't matter, identifying what your context that you're working in, what aspects of these challenges can be worked over there, could be in the form of a new project idea, could be in the form of developing a publication. I think definitely we've got people here who would like to work in both directions as well. So we could take it in that direction, and we would definitely want to, if we need additional financial resources to be brought in, we can definitely reach out to all the different donor agencies or development banks, which a lot of us are connected to anyways. And then this would be a different kind of an approach than responding to a call for proposal from a specific organization, but rather bringing out the need of the sector and asking them, hey, here we have real observations from people who are working on the field. Either need not be funding us, but rather like work on this in your next opportunity to invest or support. So this would be our call to action at the Susanna session, as well as our communication. So we would be sharing the session, as well as we would also bring out a short crisp publication out of the learnings that we have got here. So that's our direction. With that, I would like to hand over back to Stefan for any final words in closing.
Can I say something, Ajit?
Sure, sure.
Peter, Karibu.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Please.
Please.
Yeah, you know, I delayed, sorry, I delayed to get into this meeting. I was in another meeting on another pilot program on monitoring of self-management of on-site sanitation systems. Actually, we had that workshop yesterday with UNICEF and the Ministry of Water and Sanitation here in Nairobi. So we were just trying to do a follow-up on what we were doing yesterday on how we shall pilot that program on self-management of on-site sanitation system, because we know that is the future of sanitation, and basically that is why I delayed to get into this meeting. I actually thought it was over, so I was just trying out to see if these guys are still around. So thank you very much. We are just working on the same things, but at different levels, at different places. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Peter. So we have been recording this session. Ajit will make available the link so that you can catch up, because Gert from Practica, who is also in the call, is behind the development of the poo-poo pump. We have been discussing very intensely the issue of how we improve the equipments which help empty pits based on specific challenges. So you may want to scroll forward to that section where he's explaining a little bit more. And of course, through the email, you can of course link bilaterally to find out how to connect. For everyone, it's now, I think, 5:30 in Indonesia, or maybe even later. So thank you very much for your time today. Peter, thank you for joining and checking out whether we are still online. Thank you for this effort. And I think there's, we have seen some elements where it makes sense to nurture the collaboration. Thank you very much for your effort, and hope to see you all back during the next event. Thank you, our host from Urban Waters and from Hafen City University. Merci beaucoup. We'll also translate for the French colleagues to join us next time. Enjoy your Friday.
I wouldn't mind a pint.
Thank you.
I wouldn't mind a pint, Stefan.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye bye all. Yeah.
Thank you. Karibu sana.
Yeah.
Asante.